Adieu. 100 Nazi scalps. And I want my scalps.
Look deep into the face of the Jew who is going to do it.
Lay your palm flat on that tabletop.
I couldn't resist.
Hello, and welcome to Bird's Eye View Media and another film comparison. This time we're going to return to two Quentin Tarantino movies. We are looking at Inglourious Basterds versus Django Unchained. So these two films obviously are both directed by Quentin Tarantino. They're both epics in the sense that they follow their characters through a long journey from beginning to end. They feature typical Quentin Tarantino dialogue that is meant to build character, and they feature a fair amount of gory violence. In order to properly compare these two films, we are going to split each film down into 5 separate categories. Both of these films do these categories exceptionally well, so we will choose a winner for each category. By the end of the video, whichever film has won the most categories will be declared superior. The categories for Inglourious Basterds versus Django Unchained will be the protagonists, the plot, the dialogue, the antagonist, and the climax. So we will begin with the protagonists of the film.
My name is Dr. Goddamn snipers,
Now, traditionally, there is one protagonist in a film, but both of these movies center on multiple main characters that drive the film. Django Unchained focuses on only 2 main characters, which serves to create a simpler and more streamlined narrative. The relationship between Django and Schultz is very well done. We feel the bond that develops between these 2 main characters. This relationship is superior to any that we see in Inglourious. We see Schultz, who exemplifies both cunning, compassion, and pride as both faults and flaws. Django is a simpler character. He simply wants to reunite with his wife. He exemplifies focus and resolve. We see Schultz initially free Django and then continue to serve as a mentor, as he adds him into his bounty hunting profession, followed by assisting him in a pretty complex plan to get his wife Bromhilda back from Candyland Ranch. Inglourious Basterds features Shoshanna, who is an amazing character with clear motivation and a wide range of emotion. She witnesses her family killed, narrowly escapes, and exacts revenge after being taunted multiple times by various Nazis. She is commonly in a powerless position until she chooses to act, and in my opinion, I consider her to be the strongest of all the characters out of these 2 movies. She's exemplified well when she shoots and kills Friedrich. We see her emotional reaction as he rides on the ground, while a brilliant parallel is painted on the cinema's screen. She returns to her compassion as she fully feels what she has done. This guides her to get a little bit too close to her injured nemesis, resulting in her own demise. Aldo Raine is very interesting, and he provides a lot of comedic relief, but he doesn't really portray a wide emotional range. As he states himself, he's a simple man. He wants to kill Nazis, and he wants to create a legend of fear around the bastards.
We will be cruel to the Germans. And through our cruelty, they will know who we are.
He does this exceptionally well, but we don't really see him go through a lot of despair or even a lot of anger as the film progresses. Overall, both films have a dynamic character and a character of consistent resolve. However, Django provides a relationship between the protagonists that is really not matched by Inglourious Basterds. Therefore, Django Unchained will receive the win for protagonists. The next category is the plot.
Operation Penis. Is that of a big money buy
3 days from Joseph Goebbels is thrown in
Django Unchained features a linear but epic plot. 2 men are bounty hunters, and they hatch a plan to rescue Bromhilda.
There's a Mandingo expert I hired to help me do it.
The acts are clearly separated into becoming a hunter, hunting, the plan, and then the revenge that Django seeks after his partner is killed. Inglourious Basterds features two main parallel plot lines that end up converging into each other. Aldo Raine and the Bastards have a plan to sneak into the premiere and blow it up, while Shoshanna plans to burn down her own cinema at the same premiere. Both films feature excellent plots, but Django's is definitely a bit easier to follow. There are fewer parallel storylines. Inglourious Basterds uses quite a large amount of screen time to exclusively build character rather than advance the plot. This will create advantages for Inglourious Basterds in other areas, but it does leave Django with a more streamlined narrative. Therefore, Django will win plot. Dialogue.
That points to the authorities, proving yes, indeed, I truly.
Are you aware of my existence?
At which point
In order to properly assess which of these two films does dialogue better, we are essentially going to pull out some of the most powerful scenes from each film. Tarantino is known for his excellent dialogue ability, so it goes without saying that both of these films are going to feature high-end dialogue throughout. For Django Unchained, the first scene that really stands out is the bar scene where Schultz first offers Django to join him in bounty hunting. This scene occurs right after Schultz kills the town sheriff, and he's simply waiting in the bar. What's interesting is Schultz demonstrates his expertise because he remains so calm and casual in the middle of a ploy to get the bounty accomplished as he waits for first the sheriff and then the marshal of the town. We see some great cinematography as he fills some beer for himself and for Django, and then he proceeds to simply talk to Django about bounty hunting throughout the season, followed by eventually hatching that plan to rescue Bromhilda. So it's a simple, character-driven scene, but this is the first scene where we truly see that relationship develop. The dinner scene with Candie threatening them, cutting his hand, using a skull to explain phrenology, really does a great job at allowing us to feel the tension. We see Candie essentially toy with them in this scene. He's quick to anger, he has quick outbursts, but then he reels himself back in so he can focus on cutting the skull apart and then smearing blood all over Bromhilda's face. He's toying with our main characters and he's making them feel immense psychological distress. The entire scene is extremely powerful because it is so uncomfortable for us to watch. And then finally, another simple scene is where Django shoots the boy's father. This is Django's first kill in service of a warrant. And Schultz and Django sit atop a hill watching a man and his son work on a farm. Django initially hesitates, and Schultz proceeds to explain that it's better than he deserves, and he reminds Django of what he did by pulling out the handbill. So this is pretty important for two reasons. It shows that Django is initially reluctant to participate in a fairly gruesome profession, but it also shows that Schultz has a heavy resolve. It's similar to Aldo Raine's desire to mark Nazis, in the sense that past transgressions cannot be forgotten, and Schultz is definitely falling in this category.
Let's meet him recall wanted to rob stagecoaches, and he didn't mind killing people to do it.
For Inglourious Basterds, the opening scene, the very first scene in the movie, is one of the most powerful scenes made in recent cinema. A family on a dairy farm hiding a Jewish family under their floor. It begins very calmly with Hans Landa coming to the farm with a few other Nazi soldiers. He enters the farmhouse, he asks for some milk, and has fairly typical conversation with the homeowner. It perfectly paints why Landa is so menacing. He's personable, he's very polite, however he's conniving. He switches to English with the foresight of not alerting the hiding Jews, and eventually, but politely, threatens his way to finding where they are.
Cease to be harassed in any way by the German military during the rest of our occupation of your country.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
This shows how he lulls people into a false sense of security, and he's also very calculated. He planned this entire thing from when he first entered. Another good scene is an early scene with the Bastards when the officer is captured and respectfully refuses
I respectfully refuse, sir.
to give German troop locations. Despite him being a minor character, he evokes valor and shows the Bastards' true brutality. He shows that they are on a single mission to create a legend and they do not waver. Even though these are the good guys in the story, they have to be brutal, they have to be traumatic to truly accomplish their mission to incite true fear in their enemy. The cafe scene between Shoshanna and Colonel Hans Landa, we truly feel her fear and trauma return to her. So Shoshanna is the only one who escapes from the opening scene of the film. Her true demon arrives at that cafe, the very Nazi who hunted down her family and killed them in front of her. She is forced to endure his typical, polite, casual conversation while the audience is at the edge of their seat. Because he always enters a scene like this, because he's always so polite and personable, we don't know if he recognizes her as Shoshanna, and neither does she. She is sitting through this scene praying that he doesn't know who she is, only to end with her on the edge of tears. The final scene that stands out in Inglourious Basterds is the card game in the bar with the undercover bastards. So this is where Michael Fassbender's Lieutenant Hickox desperately tries to remain undercover in a casual situation. Unfortunately, a Gestapo major cleverly evaluates him, first by picking up an unnatural accent, and second, by simply sitting at their table and playing a game with them. We know exactly what's happening in this scene. We know the major suspects something is off. We know that Lieutenant Hickox must do his best to camouflage himself for this entire plan to work. There is immensely high tension, especially when the standoff begins. We essentially have three different characters aiming weapons at each other, and we all know where it leads.
Dann sind wir zu zweit.
So due to Inglourious Basterds' ability to utilize a variety of different characters, the dialogue and situational tension is superior. Inglourious utilizes its protagonist and antagonist as well as Django, but it makes superior use of supporting performances and puts them in excellent situations. Inglourious Basterds will win dialogue. The Antagonist.
Sat around this dinner table here tonight, but that you can't believe.
Both of these films do the antagonist incredibly well. We have Christoph Waltz playing Colonel Hans Landa, and we have Leonardo DiCaprio playing the maniacal plantation owner Candie. In Django Unchained, Candie is a powerful, rich, egotistical man who enjoys watching extreme violence, especially when it's under his control. He likes to play games. He doesn't let Django and Schultz know that he is onto them. He prefers to create psychological distress and force them to watch him do things he knows makes them uncomfortable. He knows how to crawl under their skin. He abuses and terrorizes Bromhilda, and he gloats about beating Schultz at the very end of the dinner exchange.
I think you are a bad loser.
And I think you're an abysmal winner.
He controls the environment, and he has an array of armed men on the plantation, and Leonardo DiCaprio's performance is excellent. He was nominated for a Golden Globe. He conveys a rich southern sociopath excellently, and his abrupt anger is truly what paints such a unique villain. In Inglourious Basterds, Hans Landa is an oddly personable evil. He comes off as friendly and polite.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
But there is always a sinister motive. He is completely self-serving and a high-ranking Nazi colonel who commands various SS soldiers. As he says, he is an excellent detective. He is a master of tracking people, and he uncovers the plot of the premiere. Waltz's performance as Colonel Hans Landa is nuanced, and it earned him an Oscar. He is unlike any other villain we've seen. He is polite, kind of likable, and menacingly calculated. Interestingly, history sees these two characters as evil, but in their time, they wouldn't necessarily have been condemned by their peers. This is an interesting play on the theme of past transgressions, held in respective opposition by Aldo Raine and Schultz. Overall, Candie depends on the insight of Steven to uncover the plot of Schultz and Django.
Django's in love with Hildy. She probably his wife.
While Landa is able to accomplish his feats essentially on his own merit, all while being impossible to read. Therefore, Colonel Hans Landa is the superior villain.
Last time I seen you, you had your hands on my...
And finally, we have the climax of the film. Django Unchained essentially features two climaxes. Initially, when Schultz shoots Candie in Django's shootout, that's the first climax. Afterwards, Django is captured and escapes to return the plantation to kill the rest of the characters and rescue Brumhilde. So essentially, we have two miniature climaxes. The break in the middle separates what would have been too much constant shooting, and the second climax provides closure to Schultz's death, albeit a simple and brief heartfelt scene. The second climax devolves into a traditional damsel in distress model, and I would have liked to have seen more strength and more of a character arc for Brumhilde. Inglourious Basterds has a simple climax. Both Shoshanna and the Bastards' plan come to fruition. Shoshanna pays an unexpected price, while Aldo and Landa make a deal. The film follows through with Landa receiving a lasting mark, as Aldo cannot allow him to escape his past. Both films feature protagonists dying, but Inglourious Basterds' climax is more astute and reaches its outcomes in a more direct way. Django's final act seems a bit simplified, as it is Django returning to save the damsel in distress. It loses its unique feel at this point, while Inglourious Basterds conveys various emotional closures. Therefore, Inglourious Basterds will win climax.
Shoshanna!
Alright guys, so that was another film comparison. Thank you very much for watching, especially all the way till the end of the video. There are a variety of other film comparisons for you to check out, including another one with Quentin Tarantino's Hateful Eight versus Reservoir Dogs. Please consider subscribing. These videos take a very significant amount of effort, and we would really appreciate if you would give us a like, leave us a comment, and consider subscribing to our channel.